September is National College Savings Month. Consumer reporter Steve Noviello breaks down the basics of a 529 savings plan, answering your questions about saving for school.
The name comes from the tax code, section 529. What the plans do is allow you to set aside savings to be used later on for educational expenses. There are a couple of things at play here. First, compound interest. The earlier you get started, the more your money can potentially grow. There's also a tax advantage here. The contributions grow on a tax-deferred basis and can be withdrawn tax-free if the money is used to pay for qualifying educational expenses. There are some pitfalls, though. For example, whether or not having significant savings set aside could reduce your child's eligibility for need-based aid, and there are some fees associated. And remember, this is an investment, so what if the stock market tanks the year before your kid needs to go to college? Plans vary by state. They will be subject to maximum contributions, and you should be ready to be very diligent with your record keeping when it comes time to withdraw your money. The number one question, though, that I get from viewers is, what if my kid decides not to go to college? What happens to all of this cash? This is not like a medical spending plan where you have to spend it before the end of the year or you lose the money. There's no scenario in which that happens. What will happen is you'll be subject to penalty for withdrawing the money for other reasons. You'll also be subject to interest on the earnings that you have. But the assets in your 529 are actually pretty flexible. They can be used for things like primary education. If you're sending your kid to, maybe a private grammar school, you can use it for tuition. You can use it to buy a laptop, for internet access. They can be used for certificate programs, 2-year degrees, postgraduate work. So there's a whole lot of flexibility here in terms of spending the money. If you absolutely do not, you can also even change the beneficiary so that somebody else can spend the money. There's a difference here between a 529 and a prepaid tuition plan. 529 is I'm setting this money aside and I'm going to use it at a later date. Prepaid tuition is paying for college tomorrow at today's rate. What you're doing, especially in a state like Texas or Florida or a handful of other ones, is you are committing to purchasing credit hours at today's money, setting them aside, and then when you send your kid to school later on, you've already prepaid for their college tuition. There's a lot to unpack here, so we take a deeper dive. You can join me right now, facebook.com/SaveMeSteve, where we talk with the CEO of Virginia 529 about these college savings plans.